This is a download from the BBC. To find out more, visit bbc.co.uk/Radio 4.
It's easy to scoff at schools that claim to be doing a good job when half their pupils are getting qualifications in things like hair services and horse care, as opposed to Latin and physics. So maybe we should celebrate the fact that the government's going to reduce the number of qualifications that are included in the school league tables in England. Or maybe we recognise that not every child is academically brilliant, but maybe very good at other things. And anyway, don't we need hairdressers just as much as professors of literature? I'm joined by David Blunkett, the man who made the case for vocational qualifications when he was Education Secretary under Tony Blair, and by Professor Alison Wolf of King's College London, who has written the report on which the government has based its decision, which is being announced today. But first, someone at the sharp end, Christopher McShane, the head teacher at Winton Secondary School in Hampshire. Morning to you.
Morning, John.
And you've got a fairly low ability, if that's the right expression, intake. In other words, your kids aren't all very smart, posh, upper class, whatever.
Well, a lower than average intake, John.
Right. And your approach is what?
Well, our approach to vocational qualifications is to put them into an open option system.
Meaning?
Which means simply that any of our students can choose from a range of qualifications that we offer. So the brightest student could, for example, choose a vocational qualification. The least able student could, if they so choose, do a GCSE in history.
Will you put pressure on them to do the lower qualification one, the less testing, if you like, the less testing one, because that makes your school look better then, doesn't it, when they do well at a less demanding subject?
John, I'm an educationalist. What I do is I look at the best route for our students based on their interests, their abilities, what they want to do in the future, a whole range of things. I haven't worked in a school ever where we've put qualifications and the school first. It's always been the students first.
So what do you think of what's being proposed today?
Well, obviously I haven't seen the full range of qualifications that are in and the qualifications that will no longer count. What I would say is that I think that we're in danger of undermining some very, very valuable qualifications. You know, it's about engaging students. It's about allowing them to find a pathway through where they can succeed and move on. And we've done that very, very successfully at Winton over the last 4.5 years that I've been there. It is about appropriate curriculum. All of the solutions to learning, all of the solutions to moving young people forward is about appropriate curriculum and engagement.
But it's also about this horrible word equivalence, isn't it? I mean, is a qualification in horse care, for instance, I don't even know what a qualification in horse care means exactly, but is that worth 4 GCSEs? Well,
John, it's not up to schools to set the tariff for GCSEs, and I think if the government want to look at that, they need to look elsewhere. They need to look at Ofqual, they need to look at the examination boards. What I do as a head teacher and what I ask my staff to do is to look at the most appropriate qualifications based on the interest of the students and based on where the students want to go next.
All right, thank you very much indeed for that.
It's a pleasure.
Professor Wolf, isn't that the only possible approach, the only sensible approach?
The only sensible approach for 14 to 16-year-olds is to ensure that they get a broad-based general education, which can and should include some vocational options, but which will make absolutely certain that they go out into a very harsh world equipped with skills and qualifications that employers recognise and qualifications that colleges, sixth forms and universities value, so that whatever we do, we don't put 14 to 16-year-olds into programmes which mean that at 16 doors slam in their faces.
But when you say doors slam in their faces, if you decide at the age of 15 or 14 or 13 that, and your teachers agree with you, that you're not particularly gifted academically, but you would make a very good hairdresser, why not? Why should you not be encouraged by the school to do that? And why shouldn't the school, if you then turn out to get decent hairdressing qualifications, why shouldn't the school benefit from that?
two things. First of all, I think being a hairdresser is an absolutely brilliant occupation because you can travel the world with it, you can set up your own business. It always comes top in terms of worker satisfaction. Hairdressers love their jobs. But you cannot, in fact, learn to be a hairdresser at 13. You're not allowed anywhere near a pair of scissors till you're 16.
Which is daft, surely, but anyway.
Well, that's how it is, and that's decided by the employer representative.
Right.
So, but the fact is that actually, at 13, you should not be making irreversible decisions. And no one else in the world, by the way, would let you. People seem to believe in this country that all over Europe there are 13 and 14-year-olds going into vocational programs. Actually, they aren't. And even after the reforms today, it's extremely unlikely that we will have lost our position as number one for vocational qualifications. We do more vocational qualifications age 14 to 16 than anybody else. Other countries keep their children in very general programs. So I'm actually very keen on vocational programs and very keen on vocational qualifications, but they need to be good ones and ones that employers recognise and value.
So, David Blunkett, you set off in the wrong direction on that basis then a few years ago.
Well, we appear to be putting up Aunt Sally's in order to knock them down, because how could you possibly disagree? We need rigour, we need breadth, we need proper equivalence. We need, incidentally, not to confuse under 16s with 16 plus. A number of the qualifications mentioned throughout this programme from about 6:30 this morning are, as far as I'm aware, only available to post-16 students.
Right.
I don't know anybody in my neck of the woods who takes horse care. I think the only people who have horses in my constituency are the local police. So I think we just need to, if you don't mind me saying so, I think we need to get real. Most of what Alison Wolf is saying, how could you disagree? All shouldn't have prizes. Rigour should not be dropped. Equivalence should be sensible.
Right.
But we should encourage those who have got vocational bent, and at the same time use that to get them up to speed with things like literacy and numeracy.
Yes, but are you? I'm not quite sure now whether you're approving or disapproving what the government is proposing today. In other words, to remove so many of these qualifications.
I'm disapproving of the whole climate that's being created about these so-called hundreds of qualifications that are supposedly being used in schools. Some are being used in further education, quite rightly. Some might be available through university technology colleges, the 14 to 19 initiative put forward by Ken Baker, one of my predecessors as Education Secretary. By all means, slim them down. Let's have a look.
Well, that's what they're doing.
By all means, slim them down. Do not send the message out that this is a wholesale trashing of what was there, and that somehow vocational education has been downgraded. And if you do that, you'll do us a very grave disservice. Because what Alison...
hang on, but is that what is happening? I mean, you're talking about putting up straw men. Is that what is happening?
Well, you just listen to your own headlines at 7 and 8. Just know what was put out when Alison published her original report. The whole spin on it, and I'm very familiar with spin, as you know, John, was all about how things had failed appallingly. The equivalents were four GCSEs for horse care, and all of this is going to be put right. Well, by all means, move it on. By all means, put right things that have eroded over the last decade or so. But let's really reward people who have some vocational bent. I was with the Vice-Chancellor and leaders of Sheffield University yesterday talking about engineering and the absolute imperative of recognising that young people should be encouraged to take those qualifications. Actually downgrading, as the government is about to do, design and technology won't help with that.
Well, now, is that what is happening? Is the government, Alison Wolf, is the government downgrading things like design and technology, and therefore, aren't you playing into their hands with your report, with your recommendations?
Absolutely not. I think that the most important thing that the government can do is make it clear to people which vocational qualifications and which practical and applied qualifications are really valuable. Because then when somebody goes to a college or to the labour market with that sort of qualification, they will find that it's rewarded and recognised. But there is one thing I would like to add, which is... I'd love to feel that, this was a complete non-problem and that actually at the moment nobody was doing qualifications in schools that weren't worthwhile. But I'm afraid it's not quite as rosy as that.
So what is not worthwhile then? That's what I'm trying to get at.
What is not worthwhile? And can I just say that the number of vocational qualifications in schools has increased by 40-fold in the last 5 or 6 years.
40-fold,
40-fold. And it would be lovely to think that that was just because these were qualifications that were good for children. But some of that is chasing league table points.
It is.
In spite of what that head teacher said. Some of it is. I'm sure it's not true in that teacher's school, but some of it is unquestionably chasing
so they're
table
doing
points.
Give me a quick example then, because David Blunkett didn't like the idea of the horse, as he said, that the horse care comes after 16 and all that. What sort of thing? 40-fold increase. What sort of things are happening in schools that you don't like?
Well, I don't know about exactly what each school has done, but the qualifications that are in the list. Because what you actually get is you get the totals, and you can see, as the press release and as the department has just announced, that there were over 3,000 equivalent qualifications. And I also know that the analysts have looked at what will happen if you then just look at the number of qualifications taken which are on the list. So it's about what's in, but what is unquestionably true is that the qualifications that are in, the ones that are really good, are only a subset of the qualifications that are being taken. That a lot of those 600,000 qualifications that young people got that were equivalents last year will not be on today's list.
I'd like to have some idea of what the 600,000 are, though. I mean, that's the thing.
There is a vast number, some of which may or may not be done in schools. There are, for example, a lot of NVQs that are done in schools. Those are highly practical. They're supposed to be extremely vocational. They're things which are designed for people who are in the workplace,
right,
and they're designed for adults. And we know, because we've got we've got this whole sort of section for NVQs, that there are a lot of NVQs being taken by 14 and 15-year-olds.
But aren't head teachers and teachers best placed to decide on what their kids should be doing?
Well, one would have liked to think so, but I have to say that looking at that 40-fold increase, you have to conclude that there are a number of schools which are going out there and basically trying to pile up GCSE equivalent points.
David Blunkett.
Well, if that figure that Alison, and I have no reason to dispute it, is correct, then it is entirely wrong that should have happened. I mean, I'll plead guilty to anything between 1997 and 2001, but not the last 5 years. Let's be clear about this. If there's a problem, let's root it out. But let's encourage youngsters to mix and match. I got my qualifications by getting a vocational qualification in business studies and going to evening class to get A-levels at the same time. And my older sons have done pretty much the same, going through, for instance, BTEC National Diploma, which is an excellent qualification. And my oldest son's now got an MSc. So let's mix and match. Let's do the right thing for the right children. Let's root out what's wrong. But above all, let's not make things